Hello, everyone. Good evening or good afternoon, depending on when, from which part of Europe you're joining. Welcome to our session. At this point, and before we move any further, we would like to remind you once again that this session is recorded. We do this, of course, because we want to provide you with the recording itself and the presentation later on, so you can access it at your own time and benefit from what we're discussing. Yes, and by joining this session, of course, you agree to this experience. If you haven't realized it already, your mics and cameras are off. We have disabled them. We do this to protect your data, but of course, you're more than welcome to interact with us through the chat box. You can activate the chat box by clicking on this icon right here. So please use it to ask all of your questions, share reflections, and anything you might want to communicate with us. All right, so I do hope that at this point, most of you should be already connected. So allow me to introduce myself more properly. My name is Nicola Ostezas, and on behalf of the OUTSTE team, I would like to welcome you once again to our MOOC webinar, Explore the OUTSTE Toolkit. We made it for you. This is going to be a 1-hour session powered by the OUTSTE project, which is funded by the European Union, and it's actually supported by Scientix. This session is part of the OUTSTE MOOC, OUTSTE in Action, Let's Team, and it's part of Module 2. In this session, we will try to familiarize ourselves with the OUTSTE Toolkit. We will share insights and basically the rationale behind its creation and offer some more practical advice regarding how you can use it. We really made it for you, so we're really excited to have this session, and we want to help you as much as we can to make your experience good, optimize it along the way. So, and to make this as meaningful as possible, we have with us 2 of the Scientix ambassadors and authors of the OUTSTE learning scenarios, and actually the experts who led the creation of the toolkit's materials. You will have the chance to hear from them very soon. I just wanted to say at this point that I would really thank you all for being here, and that I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say and what you have to show us. And very important, you might also notice my colleague Diego. Diego is here to support us from the technical point of view. So in case you have anything happening, you have connection issues or anything of that sort, please let us know in the chat and we'll try to address it very, very soon. So let's begin by our first task today. It's, of course, our signature lists. As in every other event, we want to gather your emails and communicate with you after the event. So spend the next 2 minutes by complete this form. It's really straightforward. There are only 4 items for you to keep in mind: your name, your surname, your email, and also no worries in case you don't have the time to do so right now. We will also share the link in the chat box. So off we go, and I'm going to do it with you as well. So there's no excuse. All right. You can go ahead as I'm sharing more information about today's agenda. This is for you to know more or less what we'll talk about. But don't worry, we will also share more information about what this session is about later on. So we already had our welcoming remarks. We're going to talk a little bit about the OUTSTE project and the MOOC. We'll have, obviously, to give the floor to the Scientix ambassadors, and we'll ask them to present themselves briefly. Then it's all going to be about the toolkit itself. We're going to hear more insights and tips regarding the learning scenarios and the job profiles, the games, the OUTSTE games, more about the OUTSTE toolkit and the testing that it took place. And we will end with the OUTSTE guidelines. Moving ahead, we'll have the audience Q&A. That's where we're going to focus on all of your questions, and we will finish with some closing remarks. Now, regarding OUTSTE. OUTSTE as a project was created as a way to respond to some of the most prominent challenges regarding STEM education. In particular, the project's main aim and main goal was set to, let's say, facilitate a high quality STEM education, to try and help reconnect pupils with nature and promote outdoor learning, to raise awareness regarding the different STEM career pathways that exist, to promote technology but in an age-appropriate way, and to help teachers as they combat the different, unfortunately, the various gender stereotypes that exist in the STEM field. Now, our focus is the early years and primary school, so we're talking about pupils between the ages of 2 and 9. All right, you can click on this icon here and you can find out more information about OUTSTE. But I do believe that most of you have already had a chance to interact with our website and the MOOC itself. Now, how do we do that? How do we address all those challenges? Firstly, we will prepare some recommendations for policy makers, and in this way, we will try to share what the project has learned, all this treasure, let's say, and the learned experience. We will try to communicate it with them and hopefully in the future influence the different decisions regarding STEM education. Secondly, we have the OUTSTE MOOC itself. This is how we're all here today. And of course, we have the OUTSTE Toolkit. Now, we're not the only ones creating all this, behind all these wonderful initiatives. We are a consortium of 4 different partner organizations from throughout Europe, but you will hear more about it in the following sessions. More specifically about the OUTSTE MOOC, if you haven't done it already, take the chance and register. We're still in module 2, and you have plenty of time to catch up. No worries about it. What you should know is that it's an online course that runs from the 12th of January until the 18th of February. And we're trying to help early years teachers and primary school teachers and educators learn more about the integrated STEM approach or the STEAM approach. We're trying to help them explore the toolkit and the materials it includes, because in this way they have direct access to practical examples about STEAM learning. We're trying to help them promote the skills that can help the little ones, the pupils, address societal challenges along the way. And for sure, we're trying to help them create effective STEAM activities. The whole focus of this attempt is behind the OUTSTE learning scenario and the MOOC, but more information about it in the MOOC itself. There are 4 modules, 3 live events. This is the second one we're having, and there is also 1 week extra for the final assignment. So as I said, there is plenty of time for you to catch up and complete the MOOC. Excuse me. Now, if you do want to know more about the MOOC, join, register in the MOOC itself, and in the live section event, you will find information about the previous event that we had. You will have more direct information about the MOOC itself, and also benefit from different practical tips that will hopefully make your learning experience better. And another of our ways, the ways that we follow and the way through which we're trying to address all these challenges is of course to the OUTSTE Toolkit. You can access it by clicking on this icon here. And we just wanted to tell you that most of its materials, they're created around 3 main themes: taking care of nature and oceans, explore the space and the solar system, and our changing weather. The reason behind this is that each of the materials is supposed to be used in connection with the others. And this approach really enables the usage of the toolkit. All right, and at this point, I will pass the floor. I will give the stage to the scientists ambassadors, and I would like to ask them to present themselves briefly, so you also get to know them a little bit better. Who would like to go first? Aglaya, are you ready?
Yes, yes, of course. Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you, dear Nicholas. I would like to thank everybody who is here for this session, and express the feelings that I have of honor for being one of the scientists ambassadors that have contributed to this session, and the OUTSTE kit toolkit as well. I am Aglaya Madana. I am the assistant principal in my school. I'm from Greece. Our school is in Athens. It is a public school. I'm also a STEM educator and a robotics coach. I manage, I coach a non-profit after-school STEM and robotics club, where we coach different robotics teams, and we take part in local, national, and international competitions. And I'm also an English teacher. So that would be all from me. Nice
Thank you
to be
so
here.
much. Thank you so much for being here, Aglaya. I'm sure that the participants will be very interested to hear more from you later on. Vesna, what about you?
Hello, everybody. I'm honored to be here, and I'm very pleased that I had the opportunity to collaborate with the OUTSTE team because by creating my learning scenario, I learned a lot. I got feedbacks, and my STEM teaching improved also. And I'm enjoying the MOOC and looking forward for further the next things that will happen with the OUTSTE. My name is Vesna Lampic. I'm an early childhood education and care teacher. And, I'm working in Peter Pan Kindergarten in Zagreb, Croatia. I like STEAM from the my first starts working in kindergarten. I realized that I was doing STEAM from the beginning, but I didn't know how to call it. Now I know more. I am also a scientific ambassador and helped me a lot to learn about the STEM teaching. And I'm also a member of Tool Creation NGOs Empower Perfect and Integrated Development Association in the Amateur Scientists Association. I'm really glad to share you my experience with the Foxes and Foxes learning scenario.
Thank you so much, Vesna. It's incredible, and I think both of you can really act as real role models for everyone who is interested in promoting meaningful integrated STEM learning. So more about you in a while, and without further ado, I will move on to the first part of the main part, actually, of our session today, where we're going to talk more about the learning scenarios and the job profiles. Now, the learning scenarios were created as a response to, let's say, various challenges when it comes to teaching STEM. And we can say that as a whole, the learning scenarios purpose was to be used as a guide and a framework that teachers can use in order to create their own attempts, their own STEAM activities. That being said, everything that we have created, everything that you see in the learning scenarios are to be used as inspiration, to spark curiosity and help everyone make their first steps towards more concrete STEAM activities and STEAM learning. Of course, we did not do this alone. As I said before, it was an international collaboration. To create them, we collaborated with individuals and organizations throughout Europe. And you can see here in green the partner organizations of the OUTSTE learning scenarios, but of course also the countries from which the scientific ambassadors come. And you see here we have Greece, Croatia, Portugal, and Sweden. So the OUTSTE learning scenarios themselves are, let's say, addressing a lot of different contexts and needs. But of course, our goal was to provide examples that you can use and adjust in your own context. And this is what we came with. These are our results. We have 2 learning scenarios for early years and 3 for primary school. education, you can access them by clicking on the icons. And what I wanted to say here is that especially the ones of Aglaia and Anna, the learning scenarios, the Guardians of Tribology, and Let's Fix It, they were created in collaboration between OUTSTE and Timken, which is an industry provider. And we did this because we wanted to enhance the connection to real STEM field learning. To help you understand the learning scenarios better, we wanted to highlight some sections, let's say, so you can keep them in mind as you explore them. We begin with the first page. That's where you find all the most relevant information for the learning scenario. That's going to give you a first taste of what the learning scenario is. So you can just skim through it, and by itself, this fast reading is going to give you a very good understanding of what the learning scenario is about. The second part is the guiding comments, and by reading it, you will understand which activities are, let's say, more central, and of course, what things you need to keep in mind as you're using the learning scenario. The third part is the lesson plan itself. That's where you see all the activities that are taking place. You see the time that each activity is needing, and there are also connections to the different subjects and curriculum, let's say, areas that you can use them. All right, and then we finish, of course, with loose parts. That's the provision for free play. This is particularly important because it allows students and pupils to really deepen their learning as they engage in independent learning. So they use all this kind of loose parts. They use all the materials of the learning scenarios, and they deepen their own learning in their own way. All right, and some good indications and things to keep in mind about the learning scenarios is that adaptation is not only advised, but it's needed. As I said before, they're used as a base. They are to be used as a base and to spark curiosity. I would also suggest that you prepare for them. So read them through and get accustomed and familiar with the different terms that are used in the learning scenario. And for that, we would also suggest that you expand on the language. In Annex 1, usually we have some useful vocabulary and language that you can use as you do this. Of course, there are also some quality criteria, the STEM criteria codes and the feedback practices in the learning scenario that you can use in order to see how you're doing with your learning and whether your students are responding to the learning objectives or not. This is also a table with the main information for each learning scenario. I will not talk much about it, but you will have access to the presentation itself, so you can explore them at your own time. Now, regarding the job profiles, we perceive them as living examples of STEM career paths. And we really wanted to use them to be used actually as resources that could help teachers battle gender stereotypes and promote more gender equal practices. This is the reason why we created the video interviews that feature real experts in the STEM field. They talk about what they do, and they're trying to inspire pupils to follow their own example. All right, and we also created the accompanying activities in order to show teachers how they can use the video interviews, what they can do in relation to it, and what activities they can follow after their pupils watch the videos. This is exactly more or less what the job profiles are. They are basically a unit, and the different parts of the job profiles are the video interviews and the accompanying activities. And the OUTSTE project created 3 of them. There is the job profile about of a marine biologist, and this job profile has 2 versions. And then there is also the job profile of a meteorologist. Now, the reason why we created 2 versions of the job profile marine biologist is because we understood that students and pupils, especially in the early years, they do need this language adaptation. They do need more time understanding what the STEM expert is doing. They may have more questions, and also teachers' involvement is required way more than when using the job profiles with students in the older classes. All right, and regarding some, let's say, details for the job profiles, what I would like to say again here is that use them, be inspired by them, but if you are to use them in your context, make sure to make the proper adaptations. Try to focus and really understand how you will introduce the job profiles to your pupils. Do work on the language, it's going to be needed. And we would also suggest that you can also expand. And instead of just using the job profiles themselves, you can organize a live career chat in your own classes. And if you are to do this, a good idea is to start with the parents. Many of them will be working in the STEM field, and it's the best way to ignite this curiosity and motivation. Now, apart from the 3 ones, there are also some more video interviews, and you can find them in the different learning scenarios. Remember that, as we said before, the different elements of the toolkit are supposed to be used together. So you will find a video interview about a tribologist. You will find a video interview about a service engineer and one about an astronaut in the different learning scenarios that exist. All right. And I would like to conclude this part of the presentation with a question to the Scientix ambassadors. I would like to ask you, which learning scenario would you use, apart from your own, of course, and why? Which one you found rather interesting? Vesna, would you like to start? Aglaia raised her hand. Let's do it this way. Aglaia, you can go ahead, and then if we have time, we'll go to Vesna. Aglaia, you're muted. There.
I'm
All
happy
good.
I went through all the learning scenarios, which are fantastic, each one for their own reasons, and adapted to certain ages as well. For different reasons, I liked many learning scenarios. For example, my favorite was The Wonderful World of Water. Because this scenario was linked to marine scientists, which I find fascinating. Because, of course, students and younger students are familiar with the water, the ocean, the sea, but we rarely know what lies beneath the water. So I find it a very interesting topic for all students of all ages to explore. It gave children a meaningful and an engaging way to explore science through real life experiences. And we know what is water, and we interact with it. So the topic, I think, can capture the interest of students very easily. What fascinated me was the strong connection to authentic scientific practice.
There is a lot of that for sure.
Yes, I loved this learning scenario. Through the role of the marine scientists, children can see what happens outdoors and in everyday situations. Because especially for all students, but especially for young students, outdoors learning is a lifetime experience. And whenever we do it and whenever we implement outdoor activities, we see our students being really excited, a little too excited sometimes. But this is learning. This is part of learning. It's very important, of course, for us to be able to manage teams and groups when we work outdoors. It's our greatest difficulty, I think.
Indeed.
Because of the overexcitement of our students. It is also, this learning scenario was also very flexible and inclusive. It catered for all.
We
For
can
both
really see that you're
genders.
excited about it for sure.
Yes, I loved it because it was inclusive, flexible, and it covered all steps that we want a scenario to integrate.
All right.
Um,
I'm sure we can talk a lot more about the learning scenarios. Unfortunately, we don't have the time. I do want to thank you for proposing this learning
you're
scenario. It's also
welcome.
one of my favorites. And in order to stay in time, I would like to move on to the next session. Vesna, I'm pretty sure you'll have more questions along the way, but at the moment, let's give space to Aijo and Pablo.
Thank you very much to everybody. Thank you very much to Ian for organizing this, especially Nicolas, that is always supporting us on every task and everything, and also Diego for the technical issues, and also for my colleagues of the project partners that are for their valuable time, and also for the rest of the attendees. So my name is Pablo Busso. I'm going to just present you like key learnings that I have achieved during this project, this lovely project, just in 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead. So I work in AIJU, that is the Technological Institute for Children's Products and Leisure, that is placed in Spain. And all of our activities based on that, is based on children research. So for example, when we are creating every game, every product, every prototype that for address to children, we follow like the design thinking approach, the design thinking methodology with different stages about immersion or emphasize, if you are aware about that, definition, co-creation, and testing. Sorry for immersion, that is in Spanish. In English is with 2 M's. So at the end is like the stage of the immersion is to getting familiarized with the thing. So definition is to go to more concrete about the thing that you want to create, to define, to like create a briefing. And co-create is when you are working with experts, and also in this case with children, in trying to create something and then create different prototypes. And after, then you have to test everything and maybe sometimes to go ahead to initiate again the project. So we move to the next slide. For me, something that was interesting was about the mess, about the STEAM concept in this project and in society, because a lot of people is talking about STEAM, is talking about STEAM with an A that is related with arts, also with STREAM, sometimes in years ago that was related also with robotics. So one important thing that I have learned from my colleagues, that from my scientific colleagues, was to try to be aware what should be defined as an STEAM concept, and the importance of when you are creating something related to an STEAM game, the importance of trying to address at least 2 different topics. So based on that, we have carried out a review, a bibliographic review about the different games and toys that were available on the market. And we have seen that it was a little bit of confusion of what is addressed like the STEAM concepts. That's the reason that we have created this. And you have also available a list of the different games that are related with STEAM. Another important thing that we have considered for the creation of these games is to be aware about the main problem, one of the important problems that children are nowadays addressing, and is that based on our previous researches in 2023 and also in 2025, is like 90% of the children located in Spain, who live in Spain, are in front of the screens more than the time recommended by the experts. And this is something that is not just focused on children in Spain. We have carried out, for example, other researches in 2023 that were in Portugal, in Spain, in Italy, and Egypt, and also with different ages, that in this case were children between 11 years old and 18 years old. And you can see that in all the countries that we have studied, is like more than 85% or more than 80% of the children are in front of the screen more than the time recommended by the experts. And this was something that we want to work during the STEAM project, how to avoid this. And this is something that is not which consequences it will have based on our experience and based on the work that we have carried out with the different health experts and also experts in child development. For example, pediatricians, what they say is that it's related with sleep disorders, it's related with mental health, is related with overweight or obesity. Psychologists, it's related with irritability, with socialization difficulties, and anxiety of stress. And I would point out because there is a lot of problems in the adolescence world with the psychology. And this is also related with the different lifestyles that we are evolving now with more sedentary and with more problems related with these psychologies. And this type of problems is very difficult to work with them during the adolescence. So it's the time when you are in the childhood development to try to address on that and try to create health lifestyles related with this. And more physical ones related for the ophthalmologists is like they are related with myopia, with dry age, or with eye strain. And a common way of thinking of a lot of adults is like saying like the main problem is because children of nowadays, they're interested more in watching television or playing video games or being in social media instead of practicing sports or playing with toys. In that example was for children between 11 years old to 18 years old. And we can see here that children prefer more practicing sports or listening to music rather than watching television or playing video games. And also, if we move to the younger age bracket, we can see that they prefer to be with friends, playing outdoors, practicing sports, painting, crafts, and only in 5th, 7th, and 9th position are activities related with the screen. And why this is happening? This is happening because when you are trying to play to something, you need to think about how to do. You need to like an active way of thinking, an active way of physical activity. And this is the main barrier that we have found. For example, in adult way, when we are waiting at the doctor and we have just 1, 2, 3 minutes, we always take our smartphone and just to check the social media. And this is something that children are also imitating. It's more easy when they are in the sofa, just to, when they are making noises or trying to make some way of being aware that they are there. It's more easy to just to click on the television or give them their mobile. But we have seen in the previous slide, it's very important to work with them in some active movement, active activities that they prefer to do that at the end. And also for the definition stage, what we normally do is always work with the age of development and with the different abilities that they are aware of or they are capable of doing, but also as the gender differentiation now is decreasing and boys and girls are getting more equal nowadays, it's very important to be aware about their different interests. So we have created different lifestyles based on their interests, or when they're playing, when they're choosing different leisure activities. And we need to be aware about these different lifestyles when we are creating these games. Another important thing is try to work with them. Obviously, sometimes they are quite younger, so you need to define a concrete task and just to create with the experts the first versions of the game, so the first version of the thing that you're going to develop, but trying to work with them, to co-create with them, and then after also to test the things that you have developed with them. For example, when we're developing games, the main 3 topics that we use to test with them is that about the educational value, the usability test, and also the level of appealing. And based on that, we have like different objectives who works with the teachers of the experts, with children, or with the parents. And just based on the testing project, it's like all the thing that was planned has been achieved beyond of what is done. And also an important thing for us is when we are developing different materials, for us is really important the social inclusion. And for example, all the games that we have developed, we always apply the Toolkit tool. That is a tool developed for evaluating the level of accessibility for children with disabilities in health impairment and motor skills, and also for eye impairment. And also their power of influence for increasing the social awareness or increasing the visibility of children with disabilities, multiculturality, equal development, equal gender, and also sustainability. Just some examples of some of the results based on the test carried out for an OUTSTE project is that all of the games have presented a very high children play motivation. The main one was the Rain Explorer ones, the one with the better results, and also for parents. The main barrier we have found in the first version of the ESCO Rescue AR game that was the most high effort involvement, but we have seen here a main barrier that trying to apply like the mobile phone and different technologies to this young age, it has this barrier. But the main purpose of this game was, okay, if you have a children that is really interesting to go outdoors, to go to explore the nature, then do that. But in that cases that the children have a different barrier, that they don't want to go to the nature for any way, then you have this specific resource. That is not the best option, but it's something to support in that cases. And also another important thing that because when we are thinking about games, about toys, I'm realized that I'm not 100% objective, but we need to don't pay so many attention on that about the real value. But playing games, it has a lot of benefits for childhood development. For example, it's increased their motor skills, obviously, but also their communication skills, sociability, different activities that are really important and are really connected with the soft skills that are really important nowadays, and also with the 21st skills. And at the end, just when we have created everything, we have test everything. An important thing is to communicate the thing that we are doing today, with this MOOC and with different webinars, and also with the Toy Guide project. That is the most important project that we have here in AIJU, that it has a lot of social impact. And for example, every year has more than 100 million contacts in Spain, not just in the whole Europe, but just in Spain. So just was here the main topics that we have worked in OUTSTE projects, the main things that I have learned, and just to ask, I don't know if two questions, at least one. So how do these games support integrated STEAM or STEAM learning through play in your point of view? And thank you very much for your time.
So we go back to the Scientix ambassadors. What do you have to say about this question? How do the games promote integrated STEM or STEAM learning? What do you think? Vesna, you can go ahead. Thank you so much.
I would say that each of these games have involved some outdoor learning. Also about different systems. The rain system and Rigs Explorer is very interesting because you can use those cards for the environment. It's like citizen science. Also, you can adapt the game for some indoor learning about the outdoor, and also with some experiments. You can interconnect it. The Eco Rescue game is a digital part, but I'm also for the STEM teaching that can be observed. The same phenomenon can be observed from different perspectives, because
absolutely.
STEM is the acronym is the observation of the object or some phenomenon from the different perspective. You can observe it from the engineering part, from the technology part, also mathematics part, or even the A part, which could be literacy, reading skills, imagination, and it all comes together. But the different students have different ways of learning. So each perspective could involve and evoke in some student their curiosity and understanding of the world. So
thank you so much, Vesna.
Explains the different system and combine them for integrated STEM teaching.
Thank you so much. And just a note, do explore the OUTSTE games and do create your own opinion about it. We're looking forward to receiving your ideas and feedback in the MOOC. So, without further ado, another expert.
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name's Brenda Lattimore. I'm with Dublin City University, and we had probably the nicest part of the research. We had to test the toolkits, so we got to go out to practice, and it just I suppose it was just very hands-on and challenging in some ways, because you're taking someone else's work and you're kind of trying to see how, you know, work that was designed in other countries, but how would they adapt, and how would they fit in the Irish context? So it was yeah, so that's where we took over. And what we did was maybe a slightly alternative approach to research. We started off with, we wanted to get buy-in. We wanted our educators and our teachers, our primary school teachers, to take ownership. So we invited them into a focus group session in Dublin City University. And that took place on the 30th of January. So nearly a year ago. And we had 12 teachers from 6 education settings, and we had 3 from early years and 3 from primary. And what we did is we set the scene by really talking about STEM or STEAM, because it was mentioned earlier, but you know, it is happening. It is happening in early years. It is happening in primary, but often it's just not articulated. So we set the scene by talking a little bit about national policy, and then practically, what does it look like, and how can you integrate STEM into everyday activities? And this was just a scenario from preschool, where we were doing a baking session with yeast, and how we brought in all of the elements of STEM into that activity. So there was a lot of discussion took place, and I think what was really powerful about this session was just the sharing of knowledge between early years and primary, and sharing the same challenges. And one of them was kind of the lack of support. You know, you're told to deliver a STEM curriculum or a STEAM curriculum, but how do you do it, and where do you start? So we got the groups to, so we had 3 learning scenarios we were testing. We were testing foxes and boxes. We were testing the wonderful world of water, and we were testing Let's Sail to the Island. So we divided them into groups, and we asked them to kind of consider and discuss the following. Was, you know, how might you adapt this scenario for your setting? What structure can you use? Would you think of small or large groups? So really just looking at the scenario, looking at its application, thinking of the age group they were working with, and how they might modify and adapt it. And I think this is where they were quite surprised that we were asking them. We weren't saying this is what you deliver. We were saying, what do you think? And relative to your children, you know, how would you introduce it? And this gave forth really, really rich conversation. And I think they were just you know, really excited to be involved in this stage of the process. This is, I mean, it's very hard to deliver, kind of give a caption of the rollout in a few slides, but I'll endeavour to try and do it. But so this was from one setting where these children would have been 4, 4.5, maybe some of them coming up to 5. So they had introduced the children to the story of Let's Sail to the Island, Let's Sail Off to the Island. And it was presented as a problem. So it was a problem-based learning, but it was also project-based learning. So this STEM play went on over many, many weeks, and probably till they finished up at the end of term. It kept coming back into their play, which is what you want to see. So children were presented with this problem. So the boat, had sunk, and the marine biologist was left on the island, and how could they rescue her? So they tried to slow down. So they really did employ slow pedagogy here, and they directed the children initially to the whole issue of floating and sinking. So the children had come up with the idea of making a new boat or some type of vessel to rescue the scientist, but how to do it and what materials to use. So they spent quite a long time, quite a number of days testing, what would float and what would sink. And then they went on to making their own boats. So really hands-on learning, getting the children involved from the start. And also, during that, listening to the children's language, listening to their conversations, and constantly introducing new words and new vocabulary contextually for the children. So what this developed then was, going at the children's pace and listening to the children and developing their interests as well and their questions. They involved a lot of group reflection and considering, again, these are very young children, but the level of deep thinking was very profound. And, you know, the children kind of hypothesizing and then wondering and comparing and contrasting, and did their predictions. You know, they may have predicted that one material might float because it was a large object, but it actually sank, or vice versa, you know. But so it was a lot of that type of conversation went on. So it was a lot around the language of STEM. So building knowledge through discussion, through co-creation. So yeah, a lot of Vygotskian influence coming through here. And this, again, the educators were so surprised at the level or the depth of interest that the children had, but they kept testing it. So even, you know, they kept coming back to it. So even though the story had been delivered, they'd worked out, they'd made their boats, they'd tested them on the water, it kept coming back. So this was they developed learning stories, which are on the MOOC, but one little girl, she kept challenging herself, and she brought in, you could see her lots of elements of maths coming into it. So she wanted to see how many figures could the boat hold before it capsized. So again, through their play, they kept, you know, challenging their thinking, but you also started to hear this lovely vocabulary coming through. And obviously then I think where the educators got really excited is that they could understand that, well, they could see that the children understood, because you know, the language was appropriate for their play. And to their play, should I say. So there was, when we talked about, you know, the agency of the educator and the teacher, there was another class, a very young group, and they did actually take, again, which we liked, was that the teachers felt confident enough to even take a scenario that was pitched for an older group, but bring it to a younger group. So there'd been a lot of diverse weather, and there'd been a lot of storms locally, and then there was snow and there was ice. So the children were interested in weather. So the education, even though they were only 3.5, she decided to bring in the wonderful, to bring in about the water cycle. But the book that was initially suggested was beyond the children, so she sourced another one. And we loved this kind of sense of, you know, yes, we don't have to use that book, we will go and source another one. And this book, The Little Raindrop, that's online and it's free, so again, very inexpensive. And I think that was an important theme, that, you know, anything that, even with the sail to the island, it was all reusable materials that were used. So it was kind of repurposed art, for want of a better word. So I would say, I think the feedback was, the group that did the water cycle and the wonderful world of water, it was pitched beyond them. It still worked, but it ended up, there was a lot more teacher involvement than the group who had done Let's Sail to the Island. So that's kind of interesting as well. But again, very good learning, but it didn't come through in their play afterwards. I think as well, we held 3 focus group sessions in total. So we had 2 where everyone came together at the beginning and the end, and then in the middle we had a Zoom session with each individual setting. But myself and my colleague, we visited each setting 3 times, so there was a lot of ongoing contact. But what was really great was their feedback, and how their feedback formed what is the end product now. And that's so important, because if this is to be used, it's not, you know, it's not about saying, here's the package, go off and use it. Like, we know this is really good context-based. It's flexible, and these materials do work, but it's about taking ownership. So I think what was lots of really good feedback, but or suggestions, but just to kind of keep my presentation brief, I felt the last one where the adults said that they just felt confident. The educators and the teachers now felt confident in introducing STEM and STEAM. They realized that they had been implementing many elements of it, but weren't able to articulate it. And instead of just kind of keeping STEM as a lesson, as a subject within the day, they could see how they could integrate. So integrated STEM throughout the morning and throughout the day. And they could see the relevance of bringing it into, or the importance of bringing it into the children's play as well. So that's kind of, I suppose, a very brief snapshot of, of how it went. I think we were all very, very enthused at the response, and I believe fervently, though, that involving our educators and teachers from the start, by bringing them into the university and getting the buy-in and getting their opinion from the get-go was really powerful. But also what it tells us is that this works. This will work in all your settings, but it is about you taking ownership of it. So yeah, and I'm happy to answer any of the questions later on in this session. But the question I would have is for our ambassadors is, what do you think now would make the toolkit an even better fit for your daily classroom reality?
Excellent question. Actually, I'm very curious myself. So who would like to be a risk taker and take the floor? Aglaia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much. As a teacher who has already created the learning scenario, has implemented it, maybe I can share my opinion with you. And I think this is going to be an objective opinion, because when you write a learning scenario, or when you create something on a theoretical basis, even if it has hands-on activities integrated, it is different. You cannot anticipate for all of the difficulties that will appear when you implement this learning scenario. If I can use the experience from my scenario, because I have implemented it, it's personal experience though, I realized that some activities in my learning scenario, the Guardians of Tribology, might be a little more time consuming than I had anticipated before when designing the activities of the learning scenario. So I believe that the toolkit is a wonderful resource. The additions would have to be made by the teachers using, I think, using the learning scenarios, either as a STEM learning, yes, either as a STEM learning, which would take months, or a snack learning, or a small activity, or integrated into the school's curriculum, which is not always easy. It depends on the reasons for which you're using a learning scenario or an activity. It depends on the materials, on the infrastructure of the school, on whether STEAM is a whole school approach, because a teacher alone can never succeed. You need a group. You need a group in your school.
That's the reality, actually. This is the reality of education. I think it's important to say that what you said is wonderful, that teachers should take the toolkit, use it, and adjust it in their own context. And you said it beautifully. I'll have to wrap this part of the question fast. Thank you, Aglaia. Thank you for your motivation and enthusiasm. And without further ado, I would like to move on to the next part of our session.
Hello.
Margaret, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's my privilege to round off the partner presentations. My name is Margaret Kernan, and I work in ICDI. And together with my colleague, Daniel Benavides, our task was to create guidelines to inspire educators to integrate STEM and the toolkit in their daily practice. So in designing these guidelines, we decided to use human-centered design principles and design thinking. And rather than thinking firstly about the different content of the toolkit, we decided to really first focus on who the users were and what were their needs, something that, that you've just been talking about. What makes it easy or difficult for educators. So we were interested on areas such as, their prior knowledge of STEM, how familiar they were with outdoor learning, what are the drivers or the motivators? You know, what are typical struggles and frustrations for educators? And what are also their personal goals? Why they're interested or maybe not interested in adopting new integrated STEM tools and methodologies. And finally, we're interested in, you know, what were their professional habits? How do they consume information? How do teachers prefer to learn? So on the basis of all the information we gathered about educators across Europe, you know, we drew on research conducted by the European School Network and others. We developed what's called a user persona. Now, I hadn't heard of a user persona either, but Daniel is an experienced instructional designer. And so essentially a user persona, it comes from design thinking, and it's essentially a fictional character. In this case, it's Anna, an early childhood educator, which captures her needs and preferences, and based on what the literature is telling us about early educators and primary school teachers. And so this helps us to really step into the shoes of a typical user of the project, in this case, the guidelines and the OUTSTE toolkit. So on the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see that some of, you know, the frustrations, the difficulties where, you know, do teachers have time for professional learning? While many of the early educators were solid about learning through play and multi-sensory education, the STEM knowledge was variable. And perhaps external projects like this might be perceived as an extra burden. Moving swiftly on. So we translated the needs of the user into features. You know, what would be the features of these guidelines that would help these educators? So the first thing that was really clear for us, that the language had to be interactive, action-oriented language, you know, not too abstract. We also introduced little self-assessments in the guidelines along the way. You know, these are low-stake self-assessments, which would help educators reflect on, okay, well, what's my prior knowledge? What do I know? What's my understanding about STEM education? And what may be that there are misconceptions? As Brenda also emphasized, we really wanted to draw on the real-life examples of classes, teachers piloting the OUTSTE toolkit. So, you know, you see photographs of the boxes and foxes there. And we also realized the language of STEM was really important, and not every educator would understand all of the concepts. So we introduced a glossary a glossary of terms in the guidelines. So all of these features are present in the guidelines. We then, you know, developed a prototype for the guidelines, and this was done in parallel with the pilot study that Brenda has just described. So we were able to get feedback in the course of the pilot study from the actual teachers. What are they liking? What do they find difficult? What do they need more of? And so we improved the guidelines along the process. So we realized that we would need a 3-part structure to the guidelines. The first part we call the OUTSTE framework. This introduces, you know, key concepts, but also examples of STEM activities for different age groups, for the 2 and 3-year-olds, for the 5 and 6-year-olds, and for the older age group as well. Part 2 is about using the toolkit, you know, just step-by-step guide how to use the actual toolkit. And we realized that there were many extra resources, other European projects as well, that would help the teachers. So part 3 have those extra resources. Peer-to-peer learning was really important. So we introduced top tips from educators to other educators. And another section, you know, in the educator's own words. So these are direct quotations from the experiences using the OUTSTE toolkit and survey respondents. I think a number of you already have emphasized it's really, really important to adapt. So we give permission to adapt. And this is what the teachers wanted you to hear. You have permission to adapt all of the games, all of the learning scenarios to your context. So there are icons in the guidelines for adaptation. There's icons for reflections. There are icons for top tips. And there are direct quotes from the teachers themselves. This was an interesting conversation in the development of the guidelines. One of the more controversial discussions. We had many fascinating conversations and debates in this partnership. One of them was about, well, what counts as technology? And we wanted to really capture the broad range of technology use, but not to focus technology only on the screens, only on the digital technology. So in this table that we compiled, we organized it about according to the function of different types of technology in a typical early years or early primary school classroom, looking at the different categories of STEAM that the children will be involved in. So, you've got magnifying glass for observing, measuring. You've got simple tools such as, a net or a saw, or more, digital technology is in there as well. So it's not all about screens. So this was also a very important message that we wanted to get across in the guidelines. Another key moment for this partnership, I don't know if my partners agree on this, was a field visit to the Botanic Gardens in Leiden. One of the benefits of these European projects, you get to visit the countries and the classrooms. So we had a wonderful educational tour led by the education officer there, Maxine Borsman. And she really inspired us, in how she takes young children's lead in her guided tours of the botanical gardens. So the photographs here was what we observed. It was a ginkgo tree, a poison dart frog, and a fossil on the pavement. So there we are, all standing under a magical tree in the botanical gardens. And it was really her passion for STEM and for teaching STEM through story, through dance and creativity was a real eye-opener for us on that field visits that day. In conclusion, the development of the guidelines was a very collaborative exercise. It was supported by the enthusiastic participants. I'm talking about the partners, but also all the wonderful teachers, the ambassadors who helped to develop the learning scenarios and the games, and those who participated in the piloting. Of course, the real test will be how the educators use them and how they use the toolkit. And finally, I just want to give the final word to one of the educators who participated in the pilot. And she said, I see STEM everywhere now. I remember saying that at the start, use your STEM eyes. Now I use my STEM eyes and I see STEM everywhere. So that was a final inspirational word for one of the educators in the pilot. Question time for me. Do we have time for any final questions?
We will make the time. We will have to be brief, but I really want to give space for your question, Margaret. So please go ahead.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask this first question. As learning designers, we try to put ourselves in the shoes of early childhood educators and primary school teachers so that the OUTSTE guidelines would respond to their needs and motivations and frustrations. So my question is, which features or aspects of the guidelines do you think best support you and your colleagues to promote integrated STEAM learning outdoors and to use the toolkit and the children with young children?
Thank you, Margaret. I see that Vesna is already up front. She's ready to answer. So please go ahead, Vesna.
Hello. I would refer to the Toolkit. For me, as an educator, is really important to have some framework and also like that really emphasize importance of the early childhood education and care STEAM, because there is not there is mystified. We all do STEAM in the early childhood education and the older students, but we don't know that we do it. But we have to learn the glossary to talk about it, and we have to think about it. The learning process. Every part of the toolkit gives a little ideas, but connect it all together is the one segment that is repeating itself. Think about. You have to think about
There
the
you go.
toolkit. Yes, we have to think about it. We have to interconnect it all because STEAM is interconnected to understand the students more to the learning process. They also we have to think how to guide their learning process and thinking and about the things. So I think it's the more important part. You give some kind of framework. We teachers pull out the strings and bind it together. And in this MOOC, all the learning scenarios that will come will be also a great resource of creativity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vesna, for your kind words. I don't think we could have said it better. I'm very conscious about the time, so I'm not gonna monopolize your time with more questions. What I want to say is that I will gather every piece of reflection and question you have shared in the chat. I will create a document. I will answer those questions, and then I will share it with you. That's why it's important for you to complete the signature list. So that means that we're not going to have an audience Q&A, given that we are a bit over time, but I promise that your answers will be, well, your questions will be answered. All right, quick remarks. Stay connected with your STEM community and the MOOC itself. You'll find a lot of ways to do so in the MOOC, so we look forward to hearing more from you. Remember, there is the third final live event of this MOOC in early February. It's going to be a teach meet. So if you have STEM ideas or integrated STEM practices and you want to share them with your colleagues, make sure to register as a speaker. All right. Looking forward to seeing you. And very important as well, do follow up with the STEM Discovery Campaign 2026. It runs. It is organized by Scientix, the science community in Europe, and it runs annually from February until April. And it's very important for you to do so because by participating, you can connect with other STEM practitioners, and you can also win awards. The OUTSTE project is going to power an award, and all you have to do basically is complete the MOOC. To complete the MOOC, you will have to create an OUTSTE learning scenario, and all you have to do is just submit your learning scenario as an example of best practice in the STEM Discovery Campaign. So we're looking forward to hearing more from you. And before you go, please, if you haven't done it already, spend some minutes to give us your signatures. That's also how we will be able to respond to you by email and answer all your questions. I really want to thank my speakers. It was a pleasure working with you as part of this project and in terms of creating this toolkit. But I also want to thank my Scientix ambassadors. Thank you for being here today. I think that all of our participants benefited from what you had to share, and I'm also sure that they're going to take everything that they've learned and put them into practice as they create the learning scenario. Thank you. Have a nice rest of the day. Have a very well deserved rest, and see you all soon.